You make decent money, not rich money, but good money. You are not blowing it on vacations or designer bags. You go to work, you pay your bills, you do everything you were told to do. And at the end of the month, there's almost nothing left. If that is you, I need you to stay with me for the next few minutes, because what you are experiencing is not a personal failure. It is a system, and once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Meet Marcus. Marcus is 34. He lives in Phoenix. He makes $70,000 a year, which after taxes brings home about $4,400 a month. That is not nothing. That is above the US median income. Marcus is not reckless. He doesn't gamble. He doesn't have a shopping addiction. He drives a used Honda. He brings lunch to work 3 days a week, but here's his monthly expenditure. Rent, $1,450. That's considered affordable in his city. Car payment and insurance, $580. Student loans, $380. Groceries, $320. Utilities and phone, $210. Health insurance, $180 out of his paycheck. That's $3,120. Gone. Before he's bought a single thing he wants. He's got $1,280 left for gas, eating out occasionally, a streaming subscription, maybe a haircut, and, theoretically, savings. Most months, he saves $200, sometimes zero. He's not struggling in the dramatic sense. He's not choosing between food and rent, but he's one car repair away from a credit card swipe, one medical bill away from falling behind. And the one thing that eats at Marcus most isn't the math, it is the question he can't shake off. I make decent money. Why does it feel like I'm barely keeping up? Here's what no one told Marcus, and what most financial advice conveniently skips. The game changed, and the rulebook didn't get updated. For decades, the American middle class was built on a simple formula. It's called get a degree, get a job, buy a house, raise a family, and retire at 65. That formula worked because wages, housing, healthcare, and education all moved at roughly the same pace. Then, somewhere around the late 1990s, 4 specific costs broke away from everything else. Housing, healthcare, education, childcare. These 4 things, the 4 pillars of a normal adult life, started rising at 2, 3, sometimes 4 times the rate of general inflation. And they never really stopped. Think about it. In 1990, the average American home cost about 3.5 times the median household income. Today, it's over 7 times. That's not a market correction. That's a structural shift. Meanwhile, wages for middle-income workers grew, but slowly, adjusted for real purchasing power. Someone earning $70K today has less actual financial flexibility than someone earning $50K had in 1995. But here's the trap within the trap. None of this happened with a warning label. No one sent you a memo that said the cost of being normal just doubled. Instead, it happened quietly, gradually, so quietly that when you feel the squeeze, your first instinct is to blame yourself. Maybe I'm just bad with money. You're not bad with money. You're playing a harder game on the same difficulty setting everyone told you it would be. Let's make this concrete. Take 2 people, both earn $70K, same income, same city, same year. Let's call them Dana and Chris. Dana graduated in 2005. Bought her house in 2012 at $185,000. Her mortgage is $920 a month. Her degree cost $28,000 total. She's been building equity for over a decade. Chris graduated in 2018, carries $24,000 in student loans. Tried to buy a house last year, the same neighborhood. Dana house now lists for $380,000. His rent is $1,600. He's 29 and his net worth is negative. Same income. Completely different financial reality. This is what economists call the birth year wealth gap, and it's widening every decade. The year you entered the housing market, the job market, or the student loan system can matter more than how hard you work. But let's bring it back to psychology, because the system doesn't just squeeze your wallet, it messes with your head. There's a concept called lifestyle normalization. Your brain, naturally, adjusts to your current level of consumption and treats it as the baseline. The $1,450 apartment that felt like a stretch in year 1 feels normal by year 2. Eating out twice a week becomes the default, not the treat. And the moment your income goes up, say you get a raise to $78K, your spending quietly rises to meet it. Not because you're irresponsible, because your brain wired it that way. And every ad, every app, every "you deserve it" message in culture reinforces it. There's also the social comparison loop. You're not comparing yourself to your parents' generation anymore. You're comparing yourself to a curated highlight reel of everyone you follow online. Someone your age posting their kitchen renovation, a college friend's vacation, a LinkedIn update about a promotion. Your brain doesn't know those are the best moments of hundreds of different people's lives. It registers them as your peer group's average. and it tells you you're falling behind. So you spend to close the gap, even when the gap isn't real. So how do you actually get ahead when the system is working against you? Not with a 30-day no-spend challenge, not with cutting your coffee. Let's talk about moves that actually matter. Step 1. Fix your biggest cost first, not your smallest. Most personal finance advice tells you to cut subscriptions. That's like bailing water from a sinking boat with a teaspoon. Your rent or mortgage is almost certainly your single biggest expense. If it's above 28% of your gross monthly income, everything else is harder than it needs to be. The most impactful financial move most people can make isn't a budget tweak, it's a housing decision. House hacking, relocating, or aggressively targeting home ownership in the right market can shift your trajectory more than 10 years of skipping takeout. I know what you're thinking. That's easy to say. Fair enough. So let's talk about what you can actually control right now. Step 2. Name your number. Most people feel financially anxious because they're running on vibes, not data. They know they're stressed about money, but couldn't tell you exactly how much they spend on food, or what their net worth is, or when they'll be credit card free. Clarity kills anxiety. Sit down once, just once, and write down every monthly expense with the exact number. Then look at the gap between what comes in and what goes out. That number, whether it's $200 or it's $1,200, is your real starting point. You can't fix a problem you haven't looked directly at. Step 3. Automate the savings before your brain can touch it. Willpower is a terrible savings strategy. The moment money hits your checking account, your brain has already started allocating it. Set up an automatic transfer, even $150, even $100, to a high-yield savings account the same day your paycheck lands. You adjust to what's left every time. Step 4. Stop optimizing income. Start optimizing the gap. The real wealth number isn't what you earn. It's the difference between what you earn and what you spend. Your savings rate. Someone earning $55K with a 20% savings rate is building more long-term wealth than someone earning $90K saving nothing. A raise that gets immediately absorbed by lifestyle inflation moves you nowhere. A raise where you bank half the increase. That changes your trajectory. Step 5. Understand the assets that compound versus the costs that don't. A car is a depreciating cost. A degree might be, depending on the field. A home in the right market. Index fund investment. Skills that raise your earning ceiling. These compound over time. Every major financial decision should go through one filter. Does this build or drain? Most of the things marketed hardest to you drain your finance. Here's what I want you to take away from this. Feeling broke on 70K doesn't mean you failed. It means you're paying the price of living in a system that quietly got more expensive while telling you it was your fault for not keeping up. The middle class is not struggling because people are lazy or irresponsible. It's struggling because the 4 things you have to spend money on, housing, healthcare, education, childcare, have outrun wages for 30 years. And the financial industry profits from your confusion, your debt, and your spending. But here's the thing about system. Once you see them, really see them, you stop blaming yourself. And the moment you stop blaming yourself, you can start making clearer decisions. You're not bad with money, you just haven't been given an honest map. Now you have one. If this video made something click for you, subscribe to Smart Cent. Every week, we break down the financial reality no one explains clearly, so you can stop feeling behind and start actually getting ahead.